Hey, good evening, everybody. This is episode number 2 of Controllers and Remotes, the GWW Radio Network's weekly show where we bring you a reasonably deep or very cursory review of of a recently released movie on Netflix, as well as a topical discussion on some subject in video games. So we are recording just a little bit before 10 p.m. on Sunday evening, the 17th of April, 2016. Here with me tonight, as always, I have Mr. Peter Morrow.
Hello.
And Mr. Jonathan Reyes.
We're back, as usual, but it's always fun.
So, let's talk some Deep Impact. Peter, you want to take it away with your overall takeaways and general feelings? I guess, well, before you do that, I guess I should. So, general description. So, this is a 1998 film, which I do not have called up in my web browser, starring Tina Leone and Morgan Freeman. It was released in the same, I think these were both summer releases. It was released in the same year as Armageddon. And so, it's an interesting study because it kind of mirrors the whole Tombstone Wyatt Earp dynamic. And, you know, this isn't unusual in Hollywood. Typically, sometimes there's a big movie that's released, and then there's another kind of Me Too movie that's released at the same time, or two studios find out that they're working from similar, you know, subject matter, and they wind up with a very near release date. And what's always curious is normally what happens is, a lot of times what happens with this is which one you like the most, or which one you will tolerate when many other people don't, often is related to which movie you see first. So, you know, Wyatt Earp is a tolerable movie in my opinion, if you haven't seen Tombstone. But once you see Tombstone, like most people, could care less about Wyatt Earp. I think this movie was similar. So you know, the subject matter is a comet on the way to impact the Earth, extinction level event. And how people deal with it. The movie is mostly, I would say, broken up into two parts. There's, you know, what the planet does to prepare for the comet, which in movie time, not real time. I'm sorry, in simulated real time takes about a year before the astronauts land on the comet, and then there's all the stuff that ensues thereafter. So Peter, why don't you take it away with your general impressions and takeaways?
Yeah, sure. So this was actually the first time I had seen this movie. I did see Armageddon in theater, and honestly, I think I made the wrong call. I should have seen this one. In my opinion, it was overall a more engaging storyline with how are my levels? Is my volume good?
Yeah, sorry, you're good. You're good.
All right. So yeah, overall, I liked the storyline a lot more. I thought the characters were a little more engaging. I actually cared about what happened to some people. Overall. I won't say the science was any better, but I mean, it seemed a little more believable to me.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. It's not. I guess I think I could see how you're saying the science wasn't any better, but at least the science was not so ridiculously over the top like Armageddon was.
Right.
Yeah, the cowboy science. So, Jonathan, what were your overall takeaways and impressions?
Yeah, going into this movie, I don't know why I did this to myself, but going in, I was imagining this movie to be really bad. And so when I sat down, I said, okay, this is not going to be that good. I'm not going to be compelled. I'm not going to be hooked. So my expectations are extremely low. And then as I sat down, I was just really surprised by it being really, it really engaged me, especially the first, I want to say 15, 20 minutes. It was right up my alley because of her. I forgot the main character's name, but her kind of running around for MSNBC as a journalist, trying to make her way through. I connected to that extremely because that's my day job.
Were you able to connect to it even despite the fact that there's no longer an MSNBC?
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, like it was just cool to see that. I didn't know that element was going to be in there, and I really liked it. And they did a pretty good job of representing, I think, journalism. How you kind of report and then go back, and the way the news meetings go, how the hierarchy works. It was really cool to see that on screen. I didn't expect to see that at all. I thought it was just going to be, oh my gosh, there's an asteroid coming. Let's all try and say we love everybody. And I really expected that. I didn't think there was going to be some type of depth and characterization behind some of these characters. I didn't look at the casting before watching, so I was surprised to see some people in this movie when I was watching it. One of those people was Morgan Freeman. So when I saw him, I said, "Oh, look who it is!" And I really, we'll get into performances soon, but I mean, I felt some of the characters in each scene really brought a stability to the film that I did not expect. Téa Leoni was really, really good. Morgan Freeman was really, really good. Robert Duvall was really, really good. So I was surprised by that too. So I was overall very surprised. Very, very surprised at how much I enjoyed it. I quite liked it a lot. I know when we were talking in the chat, I said that like a million times, but it was really a nice surprise on a Friday night that I just shoved into my day. But man, I'm glad I watched it. I really am glad.
Yeah, and I'm kind of pleased to hear you guys talk about the movie this way. So my memories of this movie were, again, not universally panned, just kind of made fun of when it released because everybody was all about Armageddon being a big, and definitely people talked about the cheesy factor of Armageddon, but Deep Impact just was not very well received. I want to talk a little bit about the casting before I finish up my general thoughts. Téa Leoni. I don't remember if she was married to David Duchovny at the time. I guess she wasn't too far off of her. Man, I just remembered what was her big show? Was The Naked Truth. So she wasn't maybe too far removed from that. Elijah Wood in a pre-Lord of the Rings appearance. Of course, Morgan Freeman, kind of amazing as I watched the movie. Unfortunately, amazing and sad maybe at how robust and vigorous he seemed, just 18 years ago, in comparison, to his stature now. James Cromwell. One of the amazing appearances, Jon Favreau. Again, decades before he would direct the first Iron Man movie. Maybe not too far removed from his appearance in Swingers. Leela Sobieski, Blair Underwood. And I guess one of the notables that I caught was, I'm trying to remember her name. I think I'll recognize it when I see it. It's escaping me. But the lady who played the NASA co-pilot would go on to be the star in In Plain Sight? So the USA series that came out a few years ago about I guess she plays a U.S. Marshal or a bounty hunter as the main character. I think that's everybody that I picked up on. A few others that have been in lesser roles that I recognize but may not be that well known. So pretty interesting, kind of one of those movies that, if we were talking about that movie today, it's kind of a headlining cast of known knowns, right? In comparison to maybe what some of these guys were back in 1998. Dougray Scott, who was the cameraman and who plays probably today is one of the most noticeable kind of like bad guy character actors. Always playing a villain. But and we'll talk about it as we talk about the progression of the movie and the timeline. What I guess I was Denise Crosby as well, coming off of her stint on Star Trek: The Next Generation. I think what I remember most is now, kind of having gone through the movie, is how, in Armageddon, there's a certain time point in the movie. There's a certain time index where it just becomes white knuckle. Like every 2 minutes and 30 seconds, something bad is happening. Something is going wrong with the plan, and it's just a nonstop roller coaster to the end of the movie. This movie, in stark contrast, but still kind of in the same timeline, there's a time index in the movie where everything is sad, and my eyes were just kind of tearing up from that point of the movie to the end. And I didn't remember that, but then going through it, I was like, I remember this is exactly what I said about the movie, 18 years ago. There's just a point in the movie where it's just heart ripping, from that point to the end of the movie. So, I didn't necessarily like the movie better than Armageddon. They're probably fairly equal. I do note this movie for the things that it does that Armageddon doesn't. So, I don't know. I kind of went up going through casting, and as a matter of trivia. Anything else that you guys want to mention on casting?
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, I mean, just to kind of continue what I was saying about some of the surprises when I didn't expect some of the actors that I saw. I really liked just overall the stability. Pretty much all the actors brought to each scene. I was surprised by that. I thought it was kind of gonna be messy, but with the actors you're talking of, they're gonna bring that to the screen.
Yeah. We forgot to mention Robert Duvall in that mix as well.
Yeah, and I thought he made those space scenes very. He kind of made those scenes. I was always interested to see what he had to say. And Morgan Freeman was great in everything he did. Yeah, I mean, there was a stability I didn't expect. I really didn't expect it.
So, Peter, any additional thoughts on casting?
What you guys said. And I would add that, when you get a cast like this, a lot of them, some of them may have been before they were well-known actors and actresses. I mean, Elijah Wood was quite literally a kid in this movie.
Right.
But I thought everyone was fairly believable, played well together, and when you have big name actors, Morgan Freeman was pretty big at the time, still is. James Cromwell, Robert Duvall. When you have these giants of as it were, sometimes the movie becomes more about them than the actual movie. And in this one, I don't think that was the case. I thought everybody was really believable in the roles that they were playing.
Yeah, absolutely. So cast chemistry, I think what was most noticeable, and unfortunately it probably gives away my favorite scene. I think the chemistry between Robert Duvall and the
other one,
and the pilot, I think his last name is Elder, who he's gone on. I think he's gone on to win a Golden Globe, but I guess he's a really strong Ron Eldar.
Yeah, who played Oren.
Yes, yeah, Oren Monash. Their interaction. Once Monash gets over, kind of looking at. I keep wanting to call him Ed Asner. Looking at Robert Duvall as kind of this has-been is really solid. Any other notes on that's the only thing that I kind of really felt in terms of well, I guess I'll also say the and it's not so much the chemistry, but it comes out in one scene is the relationship between Biederman, played by Elijah Wood, and his father. The progression of the story is he winds up marrying his I guess high school sweetheart in an attempt to, at a certain point in the movie, they decide that it's very Fallout. Decide that they're going to preserve, the best 200,000 Americans in a series of caves is it Missouri or Montana?
I think it's Missouri, because they talked about limestone.
Okay, and then they're going to save another 800,000 people by lottery. So Elijah marries his high school sweetheart Lily Sobieski, and believes that will qualify her and her parents to come into the vault. And it winds up being that Lily is authorized to go in, but not the parents. So she, at the last minute, decides to stay with the parents. Elijah's parents grab him and put him on the bus to go to the vault. And as he's about to enter the vault, he hesitates and decides that he's going to go back. And I just thought it was an interesting scene in chemistry and how the father reacts, because the mother's like, "You're insane, get in here, we're not going to talk about it." And you could kind of see behind the father's eyes the gear turn and click and start looking at his son and thinking of him as a husband to a wife, and knowing and understanding at that point there was no way in the world that he was going to convince him to not go back for her. And he just kind of, a switch is kind of thrown, and he starts, handing him over gear and supplies so that he can make the return trip. So what about you guys? Any notable elements of actor chemistry in the movie? Casting?
I would probably I liked the I really liked the way all the interactions that Téa Leoni's character had with everybody, and how they all kind of started in a way where they looked at her in a place of disrespect. Not so much disrespect, but like kind of like, you don't really have a voice yet, so why are we listening to you? And then how in each situation with each different person, it changed different. It just changed dramatically into, wow, you're now in a place of trust, and we have to listen to you, and you're above me. Especially with like Morgan Freeman, where she kind of almost weasels her way into getting into the president's face, where he's like, "Oh, well, we got to deal with this now. What are we going to do? Okay, I want the exclusive," and how that changed into like, okay, this is the trusted anchor for people. And then with her father, where she kind of felt orphaned by him, and then how later on where they kind of made up because the world was ending. And I really, really liked her with everybody else. She really impressed me.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Hey, very cool. So any notes on cinematography for this film?
Oh man, it's hard to talk about this movie because it's older.
Right. Yeah.
So I feel like we're spoiled. I mean, I know I'm spoiled because of all the movies we see now and how they're beautiful, and the CGI is so much better. But I would just say, for the time, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, this is just a movie that does not look like it's had the benefit of a digital makeover.
Yeah.
And sorely needs it.
Yes. But I mean, for the time, I mean, I didn't see it when it first came out. I think it was pretty impressive. For what they were doing on screen there. Some of it was a little weird, like when they were on the comet. Like, I swear that was like when they were cutting into the comet. I swear that was like wood. I said, okay, that's a little cheap. But other than that, I mean, not bad. Not bad.
Okay. All right, Peter?
When we're talking cinematography and editing, I mean, I think for myself at least, the question is is the way it's filmed distracting and takes me out of the story, or is it good? And for me, I thought, cinematography-wise, it was fantastic. The effects were what they were, and that's kind of the problem of watching a release like this, an older release like this on newer technology. It's like trying to play Super Mario Brothers on your high definition 1080p screen. You're gonna see every little detail, no matter how horrid it is, and it's just kind of unfortunate, that movies like this don't age as well, especially with the digital transfer, because I think this was around the time where everything was still basically film, right?
Yeah. I think I think timeline-wise, this to me was similar to where we are now with 3D, where it could be done, but you really need to shoot it in a native camera for that, and not all directors and studios were yet making that leap to doing everything digitally.
Just pulling up the specs here. Yes, it was shot in 35 millimeter.
Okay. I don't know that I have anything like major to say about cinematography. I guess the one thing that consciously stuck out to me is, well, first, when the opening credits roll, the first thing I went was, how in the hell is this not a Roland Emmerich film? Was the first thing that leapt to mind. I mean, like who the heck in Hollywood was greenlighting any kind of disaster film to be made without Roland Emmerich's name being attached to it? I think the one thing that was positive, a couple of things that I saw that were positive, is I appreciated the scale of the Atlantis in comparison to Wolf Biederman, the original Comet. I would even say the Comet, before they got up close, the initial shot of the Comet in space was scary as hell. When you see the scale of it in comparison to the Atlantis, the shuttle Atlantis, and then think about the notion of something like that impacting the Earth, that and the gaseous cloud tail streaming out behind it. I thought that was impressive. I agree with you, Jonathan. I think once it got up close, it was a little potentially disrupting. But
but from a distance, it was pretty cool.
Yeah,
yeah, I agree.
Any notes on sound, music, or audio for this film?
I would say it was good. Pretty good and standard. Nothing that's going to blow you away.
I don't remember ever having a problem hearing any of the dialogue.
Yeah.
The music didn't take me out of the film. It wasn't jarring like say the Beastie Boys in a Star Trek movie can be. But yeah, otherwise I don't think. I mean, all the sound effects seemed believable. Otherwise, I can't really say that anything stuck out in my mind either.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am. I wanted to say I felt like I thought maybe during the movie that there was there was some good a good soundtrack behind it. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I don't really remember anything significant about the soundtrack. So and I think if anything, a slight negative is I felt the movie was a little. I felt the movie lacked a little in depth of sound, as they were approaching the comet, and especially when the smaller comet hits, that should have been still a pretty destructive impact, and I felt like the punch of the sound of it impacting was kind of muted. So
when it did impact, they panned out to a space shot, right?
Right. Yeah, I felt it would have been much more effective to kind of be in atmosphere when that happened, and and maybe they did it because they didn't feel like they could accurately represent the sound, and that's fine. I get it. But it still felt a little soft-handed. So pacing, Jonathan.
I thought it was great. I thought it was really, really well done. There was not a moment where I was bored or checking I watched it on my tablet, so there was never a moment where I was just tapping the screen looking to, okay, how much more time? Never did that once. And that's kind of like my pacing test that I do with movies. Like, okay, if I didn't have to like check to see how much more time I had to like sit through this, you did really good. And for me, I didn't have to check it. I had to stop it a couple of times because of interruptions in my house or whatever, but that's it. But other than that, great. Like, really, I mean, it had the setup with the characters in the beginning. It had the emotional impact, the intensity from the actual impact of the comet, asteroid, whatever. I mean, I thought it was well done, very well done.
Was it jarring or shocking to you when Morgan Freeman was making his initial speech, and he goes, "The shuttle is supposed to land like in a year"? I mean, I guess my thought when that happened, I was like, oh, they're gonna have to mount up this mission and go intercept this thing like in a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was. I think it was. That whole thing where Morgan Freeman was making the announcement at the press conference, I thought that gave you an idea of, okay, we're going to do a time jump, and I was a little concerned when I saw that because some movies or TV shows get a little muddled with those time jumps, and they kind of get stuck in the present, and they don't get you right back into what the movie's about. And I thought they did a good job of like, okay, this is what's happening, this is the impact it's going to have. This is the timeline. Let's get you back into it like 6 months from now, whatever, to give you an update to see where these guys are. No, it didn't bother me.
Peter, what about you? What were your thoughts on pacing?
To me, the pacing actually reminded me a lot of The Martian in its pacing. It would have, that build up, and then something that kind of resets everything back to square one, and then you'd have that build up again and that reset. And I think I just like that style of storytelling rather than action. It gives you a chance to breathe and soak in and get yourself into the story again. So your senses aren't constantly being assaulted with more and more action, which again I like. As far as the pacing goes, yeah.
Okay. Pacing for me was fine. It wasn't incredible. It wasn't bad. I thought the interesting thing about that whole, that they'll land on the comet within a year, and I did. That was the one point I checked my watch. I was like, wow, we've got a lot of movie left. How long are we going to be stuck in this 1 year time period? But what I did like is, I guess, when it was all said and done, I guess I felt like they took that 1 year timeline to make you care about the characters, but none of it felt like we were marking time, just waiting for the action sequences to start. I will say, having seen it before, and I didn't remember all the elements of it, but I did remember that this was not an action flick, that this was a character movie. So, had I not had that, pre-knowledge, I may have reacted a little differently. Favorite scenes. This one, what was funny was, of course the audience doesn't know, but at least I think Jonathan and I were watching this in real time, almost together. Peter had already watched it, but Friday night our schedules were all sketchy, and so Jonathan and I had not completed the homework on time, so we were watching the movie and we were in the chat going back and forth. about the movie. Like I said, I think Jonathan was about 15 minutes ahead of me.
Yeah.
I called having seen my favorite scene, and I made that call very early. And then the rest of the movie started to unfold, and I was like, I may have gone too soon. Maybe I should have held off and just waited for the whole thing to wrap up. But as it went on, I decided, nope, I'm sticking with my favorite scene. So my favorite scene is the scene where, so when they are on the comet for the first time and land, basically in a scene that's the same thing as Armageddon, right? The whole plan is to drill nukes down 100 feet below the surface of the comet, have the shuttle depart the comet and blow it in hope that that will shatter it. Although I guess the difference is Deep Impact is a comet and Armageddon is an asteroid, right? Okay.
Right.
So things go wrong. Their timeline gets off. They're running late. They're supposed to be off the comet by sunrise, and is it Owen Monash? Is that the character's name?
Oren
Monash. So Oren Monash, who had Robert Duvall's character not been there, would have been in command of the flight, and I believe would have been the pilot. Runs late. He's trying to he's trying to get the final nuke seated 100 feet below. So as he's coming off the comet, like I said, the sun is rising, and he winds up spinning and facing the sun and takes some solar damage to his eyes and face. So on the shuttle, he's blind and is immobilized for much of the return trip. There's a point where Robert Duvall comes down and is talking to him. He's strapped horizontally on a bed, and they have this interchange. And this interchange starts with Robert Duvall saying, "You kids didn't bring any decent books on board the flight." And he said, "I went and talked to two of the other crew members." He says he calls them by name, and he says that I asked them if they'd read, Huck Finn or Moby Dick, and they hadn't. So, and then they go on and have this dialogue about kind of who these two men are. And Monash expresses to him, I realize now you and I are really the same, and I didn't really give you that benefit of the doubt coming onto the mission. And Duvall asks, well, what do you mean? Who are you, or how are you? And he says, I was always driven to just be the best that I could be. And I realize now that's you too. And it is, to me, it's not so much as it's a touching scene. It's just very both of them take this time to immediately become very transparent. And it is I guess it stands out to me as a favorite scene almost because it's not as deliberately heart-wrenching as the remaining scenes of the movie, which just go. I mean, the rest of the movie just goes right for it. Right? There's no veiled attempt to not tug at your heartstrings. This scene was kind of a little quieter and a little more undertoned and not as in your face emotional, and so I appreciate it for that. So Jonathan, what was your favorite scene?
I kind of have two with the same character. Again, going back to Téa Leoni's character, Jenny. The first was when she finds out that her mother had killed herself over the telephone. That was it's been a while since I've seen a movie or a TV show or anything really show the impact of death of a loved one with just the emotions and facial reactions of a performer. And they were kind of, they set it up also where they showed her mother, dressing up beautiful, getting in a dress, putting on her earrings, putting on, makeup, and I wasn't, at first I didn't understand what she was doing, and then when that phone call came through and she was like, yeah, I'm her daughter, I was like, oh man, like that was powerful. I thought that was very well done, and very, very hard to watch. And Téa Leoni really, she nailed it in terms of how to really show that on screen. And then the other one was how kind of goes back to the cast chemistry where one of the relationships she has is with her father, where it starts off where her father has a new wife or whatever that is, I think, 2 years older than her, and it's just weird. And she knows that the world's gonna end, and she kind of feels like an orphan at the time. And but he kind of shows her, hey, look, I still remember and hold on to these memories of you as a child. And when it all kind of came full circle, where she helped Laura, I think it's Laura Innes. Yeah, Laura Innes's Beth. She was one of the big time anchors at MSNBC in the movie. And she said, "No, you take the helicopter. You get on with your daughter. Save yourselves." And then she drives to her father, and that's when the disaster strikes for the first time. And I thought it was really, really touching. And another powerful scene where you just see this huge, huge tsunami coming towards them, and she just grabs onto her dad. They finally made up, and this is when the world ends, and she just says, "Daddy," and that's it. And it cuts and shows the disaster. I thought that was really powerful as well. So those are kind of my two.
Most maligned scene in this movie in the late 90s. Like, it is the scene that I would see most often. I guess the internet wasn't huge then, so
Yeah.
would hear talking to people how they were like, that scene was so stupid, and why did why did they just stand there in the face of the tidal wave?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what else are you going to do, right?
Yeah, well, and
Run! No.
Well, that's an interesting bit to reflect on, Peter, before I go to you and your favorite scene. I'm like, I think there's a bit that's unfortunate in that. So the plot of the movie, or the setup as you go into those final scenes, are that most people think that they're about to get hit by two comets. So at this point, earlier in the movie, when the Atlantis lands on the comet, they wind up splitting it in two and not shattering it. There's a smaller one, and then that will not be an extinction level event when it impacts, but the large one is going to take out the remaining life on Earth, basically. The smaller one is going to hit the Earth and cause significant damage along the eastern seaboard, but is not going to wipe out the entirety of the United States, much less North America, much less the planet. So at this point, I think when Tia Leone makes that decision, she thinks that the second comet is going to hit. The reality is that they wind up destroying the second comet, and so the damage is almost limited. And I guess I feel like, well, if you knew that the second comet, if you knew that they were going to destroy the second comet, I would say the notion of the fact that the tidal wave was going to sweep inland 700 miles definitely puts me in the mode where, like, oh no, we're going to try and get the hell out of here, right? I don't just give up at that point. I'm thinking 700 miles. That means that crosses less than 1/3 of the United States.
Right.
Because it's about 3,500 miles cross country ish, in a straight line,
give or take.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh no, we're trying to get the hell out of here. We're not just giving up, So, at any rate, it's an interesting dynamic. But Peter, what was your favorite scene?
Your scene. The exact scene.
Which one is it?
Your scene.
Oh, okay.
And I want to say that this is no bull. I had a strong feeling that was going to be your scene too. that when we were talking about it in the chat, I was like, yeah, no, I bet that was my favorite scene too. I mean, and I'll go into my thoughts about it. So you have you have the same basic character in two different stages of life. Sure. The gung-ho guy who's all about being the best, being the top. And then you have the guy that was the best and was the top. And, they interact initially much like I think a father and son would act in a situation like that, and then they come together, and there's this really touching spot where they're having this real conversation and bonding, and then he says, "And call me Ishmael," and he goes into reading the book. It's just it shows. I think the quality of the writing of this movie, that they're able to take a break from the fact that the world is ending as far as anyone else knows, and really show that, even though there's something like this going on, life is still happening. Things aren't on pause.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And here's the one optional question during the show: worst scenes. Did anybody have a worst scene? You don't have to for this section, but if you did,
I'm gonna say no.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it's the cliched initial failure.
Okay.
We
Gotcha.
all knew that the first mission was going to fail and something bad was going to happen. I mean, it happened too early in the movie for it not to, right?
Right.
So, I mean, I kind of felt like we all knew that was going to happen. So that, to me, I mean, I get it for the sake of storytelling, but to me that was very kind of a cheap way of going about it.
Right.
I just don't know a better way to have done it.
Right. Not necessarily a worse scene for me, but just kind of a bad logic jump was the whole notion of that Elijah Wood's character, once he got to the vault, was going to make it back to his wife's house. So first of all,
that's a good one.
There's hours until the comet's impact at this point. I think at most there's about 10.
Yeah, 10 or 12
hours. He's at the vault in, would we say Missouri?
Or something like that, yeah.
And he's from Richmond, Virginia.
Or maybe it was Tennessee. Not that it makes a huge difference.
Well, he was at the vault.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the vault might have been in Tennessee, but that doesn't make a huge difference.
Okay. Right. So there's 10 or 11 hours. So at most a single day's road travel.
Yeah.
And he's going to go back and find this girl who theoretically is still back in their hometown, which is somewhere outside Richmond, Virginia. Now, it's how in the world does he get back in that amount of time? He's traveling back with what appears to be agricultural day workers, 13, 14, 15 of them all stuffed in a single pickup truck. They take a break because at one point they stop and they're watching television coverage of the news, I guess on a portable TV. And then he gets back and catches up to them while bicycling along a highway. So, and again, in this kind of movie, at a certain point, you just move the plot along, right? You just don't stop to think of things like that. Well, I'd say the only other thing I'll mention on that particular scene is very very reminiscent of The Walking Dead to me.
Yeah.
Just as I saw that whole scene, I was like, different subject matter, but very similar emotionally too. I think the thing that hit me the most emotionally during this film is when as they go into the comet's about to hit countdown, and you start seeing all these scenes with babies in them, and I'm like, ugh, So that was just like I said, we won't go into everything, so we don't spoil everything for people who still need to see it even after watching this spoiler section of the podcast. But
it was Missouri. You were right the first time.
Okay, all right.
It bugged me. I had to check.
All right, Jonathan, go ahead and start walking us out by running it down the box office, man.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing about Deep Impact. It was like I said in the beginning, it was a really nice surprise. It really was. I didn't expect it to be for me to like it that much, and it had me thinking for a couple of days. And it still will probably for a little while. It really had a Impact. Okay, let's
So many
see.
bad.
So, yes. All right, so the first box office we're gonna go down quickly is the week of April 8th through the 10th, because we had to show the 6th, which was a Wednesday, and so we missed this one, but we're just gonna go through it quickly. The top, I'm always gonna do top 5. 5 was Miracles from Heaven with 4.7 million. Hardcore. Oh no, that was. Oh, I'm reading these wrong. No, number 6 was Miracles from Heaven. 5 was Hardcore Henry, with 5 point. I'll give it 5.1 million. 4 was My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2, with 6.5 million. And then the top 3 were number 3, Zootopia, with 14 million. And then the top 2 were within thousands of dollars from each other. Batman v Superman was in 2, so it lost its 2-week number 1 throne. It had 23.4, and The Boss had 23.4. But it's like the numbers in the middle, like the thousands and stuff, are just like it's about a $200,000 difference between the two of them. But The Boss edged it out for number 1.
Okay. So I want to say I feel like my predictions for the box office for the top 3 movies is still accurate if you take the sum of the 3. So it's because it was what 24.48, so like 62 million total, and I had said that the top 3. I thought that thought that the top 2 were going to come in between 11 and 19 mil. And that Zootopia was going to come in even less, because I thought it was going to be a really soft box office weekend, but it looks like people got out to the movies a fair amount in that first week, or second weekend of April. I don't know, do you just want to go ahead and roll on to the...
Yeah. And then this weekend, the top 5, at number 5 was Zootopia, 8 million. Number 4 was Batman v Superman, 9 million. Number 3 was The Boss at 10 million. And then the top 2, number 2 was Barbershop: The Next Cut, 20 million. And this was the big one, The Jungle Book, number 1, 103 million. So it had a heck of a weekend.
Wow. So
Not
Peter,
surprising. Not surprising.
Yeah. So Peter, your thoughts on this weekend's box office take?
I saw a lot of hate on in my social media circles for this live-action remake of The Jungle Book. Or I don't know if you could call it a remake or just this live-action version of The Jungle Book.
Yeah.
So I'm actually pleasantly surprised to see it up there. Other than that, though, I'm kind of surprised that The Boss and Batman vs Superman are still neck and neck.
Yeah. They're like tied at the hip now. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I don't know. I guess Zootopia must have been rather lackluster because it doesn't seem to have done as well as I thought it would.
Well, the opening weekend for Zootopia, it did very well. It was I think it's 100, almost in the 100 million area, and then it started dropping.
24 million?
Since its opening, so
24 million. When did it open?
March.
37 million.
Yeah. March something. It did well though. But yeah, I mean, Jungle Book's interesting because I had really no interest in it.
Yeah.
And then I saw all the critical reviews of it because it looked overly CGI, but then I think they maybe they might have tinkered with it a little bit because it does look a lot better now with the final product. And with the critical review saying it's actually very good, and then I mean the box office says a lot too. The word of mouth says it's good, so I might check it out. I might give it a shot.
Very cool. Very cool. Anything else, Peter, that you wanted to mention on the box office take?
A little surprised that barbershop is still a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
No
Was this
offense to anyone who likes it.
was this the opening weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, Ice Cube is still pretty popular.
Well, you know, get Ice Cube and Ice Tea together, and we have something to drink. That's an old joke.
And the only thing of notable shouldn't say worth, of notable interest to me in coming soon that I wrote down was The Huntsman Winter's War opens next weekend, starring Emily Blunt as Elsa, Charlize Theron as Anna, and Thor as Orloff, the magical snowman. So, this is probably the biggest thing action-wise that's open since BVS. Which speaking of BVS, doesn't look like it's going to hit $1 billion.
No.
In its release month, but it's still very healthy at just shy of $830 million. The Huntsman is the continuation of the story from the first movie, which, as I said, I felt in chat today, would have been a good movie were it not for Kristen Stewart. I thought the subject matter of The Huntsman was pretty cool. I love these. I don't know if it's fair to call this a period piece, but it's sort of like a fantasy period piece. So I love stuff like this, and I guess I don't know if I'm going to get out to the theater to see this next week, but I'll definitely be looking for it to hit streaming services if I don't see it beforehand. You guys have any thoughts, opinions, feelings on The Huntsman Winter's War?
I like the first one. This one hasn't really grabbed me. I mean, it really hasn't. I think I'm with you. I think I might just wait for it to pop on, streaming or whatever, and I'll check it out at some point. But it doesn't really interest me enough to go pay for a movie ticket.
Peter, what about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same spot. Not really anything against it, just not something I'd go out and seek. Probably wait for it to pop up where we can all review it for streaming.
Well, let me ask you guys this: do you feel that malaise of a reaction has anything to do with Civil War coming out this month?
Mm.
Do you figure you guys, myself, lots of other moviegoers are out just kind of in a there's no real need for me to rush out to see anything in the theater this month. I could just wait because Civil War is going to be such an amazing experience.
Oh man, I feel like with The Huntsman, it just the appeal is so low. I feel. I don't know if there's really a right way to really talk about the movie. It's like I don't even know why it's getting a sequel. I guess it did well enough the first time around where it's like, okay, let's make another one. But with the Jungle Book out there, that movie's gonna make a lot more than The Huntsman next weekend. So I mean, it's not. It's just like out there to really get crushed. I don't. It's gonna have its audience, but Chris Hemsworth is not like you say. I guess he's butts and seats actor, and I mean.
Yes, let's just clarify that you're referencing, as I say, the butts in seat part, not specific to Chris Hemsworth, because I think Chris Hemsworth is a butts in seat, especially for the ladies.
Yeah, for the ladies. But I mean, I don't know. I just don't see the appeal, especially with like Jungle Book ending this one, and then the next another week or two you're gonna have Civil War. So yeah. I think you are right with the Civil War part of it. Yeah, people are waiting for that.
Yeah.
Honestly, for me, I'm more interested in this Elvis and Nixon movie.
Oh yes, that looks good.
Yeah, I know it's going to be goofy. I know it's going to be silly, but Kevin Spacey's yet to disappoint me, and
very true.
I just think it's going to be a laugh riot because. I wasn't alive back then, but just reading the stories of, Elvis going to Washington to meet with Nixon and give him a pistol.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
So,
I mean, it just seems so silly.
Yeah. So this was a movie that I didn't mention for time, but I mean we went and brought it out. So it's Elvis and Nixon, hour and a half. It's funny to me that this does not say limited screens because I feel like this is a limited screens movie, but we'll see.
I would agree.
But it's Michael Shannon, Kevin Spacey, and interestingly enough, Johnny Knoxville.
Yeah.
So, and then the other movie of an interesting note this week is Hologram for the King, which talks about an American businessman who has failed in America and goes to Saudi Arabia, seeing if he can sell his ideas to the king. And this is starring Tom Hanks, who, as I say, just prints money. So, and that is actually the end of anything that I saw that was Susan Sarandon's going to be in a movie called The Meddler, which sounds like she's again going to play
a meddling mother.
Yes, yeah. And then after that, I mean, we'll talk about these more next week. But the Ratchet and Clank movie actually comes out.
Yeah.
The week after that. So, and I guess I was thinking Civil War is this month, but it's actually in May, obviously.
Close enough.
Right. So here is my favorite part of the show, where we do the reveal and talk about, and on live air, select our movie for the next viewing room. So interestingly enough, it's an interesting month on Netflix. I guess we're doing this for the first time, so there's things that I don't know or understand about this whole battle rhythm of like movies releasing to Netflix. This month, at least, there was a huge payload dropped on the 1st of April. And then pretty much nothing after that. And I've been looking through here to see if any movie was going to drop that looked particularly interesting before, either of our first 2 episodes recorded. But it doesn't look like there was. And afterwards, for the bottom half of the month, it's kind of the same thing. So I guess part of this dynamic is there's a big drop on the 1st, and then there's kind of trickles. So we may be going back to this list of things that drops on the 1st fairly often, depending on what other movies are seeded throughout the month. But here this week is where I'm going to make my pitches for 3 movies for us to consider. And again, if you guys see something that you'd prefer to watch other than what I've selected as our 3 choices, by all means. But I've got The Right Stuff, Rising Sun, which is a Sean Connery, Wesley Snipes movie that takes place in D.C. I think Snipes is part of some either Secret Service or U.S. Marshals or something operating out of D.C.
Yeah,
I think
it's based on a Michael Crichton book, if I remember correctly.
Okay. And then the third option would be the action classic, The Running Man. And my personal vote is for Rising Sun.
I am biased. I own Rising Sun, and I read the book.
Okay.
So I'm always willing to watch that.
Okay.
I've never seen it, so I'll do it.
Okay, there we go, folks. You've seen it live on air. Our selection for the next episode of Controllers and Remotes, at least the first half of the show, will cover 1993's Rising Sun. So, again, Sean Connery, Wesley Snipes, Harvey Keitel, Terry Hiroyuki Tagawa, Mako.
Very wise. Cool.
Tia Carrere.
Steve Buscemi.
Yeah, I looked at that. Steve Buscemi. That just sounds like a riot. All right, well, that's what we'll do next week.
Cool.
Very cool. All right, guys, let's roll over to the second half of the show, or the second podcast, if we want, which covers a topical discussion in video games. So this week we're going to be doing virtual reality. And I didn't have. And, I'm sorry, Jonathan. Before we do that, did you want to talk about your everything you need to know about Kingsman 2 article?
Oh yeah. I'm gonna probably add a little color to it during the week. I didn't have time to sit down and really, or maybe I'll just do an editorial on it. Kingsman, if you follow me on Twitter or have heard me on a podcast, was one of it was my favorite movie of last year. No, 2014. No, last year. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually it was actually 20. It was really weird. It was released in what, like, November or December of 2014, and then, or not released, but maybe it finished film. Maybe it was finished and was available. So maybe it was released, but it didn't show up in theaters until
Right.
January or February of 2015.
Okay, yeah, so it was my favorite movie of last year. And I thought its standout was Taron Egerton, and I mean, I could go on about him. I think he's fantastic. But I'm really excited for this sequel. I really, really am. And it's just basically a rundown of everything that's come out about the movie, and anything new that ever comes out, casting news, whatever. I'm constantly going to be kind of, doing rolling updates on it. But Matthew Vaughn is back as director. Channing Tatum himself has come in the cast as I dubbed it as a mysterious Southern character. Pedro Pascal, who he played Oberyn Martell in Game of Thrones. He was cast as a guy named Jack Daniels. I don't know. This movie's got a sense. The Kingsman had a sense of humor, so I'm sure they're gonna have something with that. Colin Firth, I'm not gonna spoil it, is teased to return. I'm not telling you why he's being teased to return. Something happened in the movie. And then, interestingly, Julianne Moore is up for a villain role, and Halle Berry is up for another role. But I'm really interested in Julianne Moore.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I want to see where that goes.
I'm wondering if this is going to become the franchise's shtick, that they always cast a famous and critically acclaimed dramatic actor. I mean, Samuel L. Jackson has definitely done comedy, but he's also done a healthy amount of dramatic roles.
Right.
Who are not historically villains, and cast them in these roles.
And then just the last two pieces I have in it is the film is set to release next summer, June 16th, 2017. Wow. And the official title is Kingsman: The Dark Circle.
Golden Circle?
I'm really excited for this movie. I loved it. Kingsman was quite a ride. I've seen it already like a bunch of times, like 5 or 6 times. It's really good. I can't get over that movie. But yeah, it's very light on like I said, color in the article I did, but it was just mainly a news piece to really just get across to people. But yeah.
Okay. Very cool. All right, controllers, virtual reality. I'm open to anything anybody has to say. I guess I'll say, on another podcast we revisited this a couple weeks ago. You've got Oculus Rift. You have Oculus Rift and the Vive that are supposedly launched at this point. However, both have been plagued by a lot of logistics problems, and I think Rift only has like a very small number of people with devices actually in hand. And I don't know that anybody who submitted a pre-order for the Vive actually has a hold of a unit yet. So, what's pertinent to me for VR now is that, now what we have to start seeing is games. I'm kind of over my brief period of willingness to entertain it as just a new sexy technology. Now I feel like you have to show me games, and I have to hear that people find them to be amazing. And right now, the only things that I would be interested in are Project Cars, which I have, so it would be great pairing it with a VR headset, and Elite Dangerous. And I have a Samsung Galaxy VR headset that's been marginally interesting, but again, I haven't downloaded any games for it, and I'll go around the table and see what you guys have to say about VR. But when we come back around, I'd definitely like to talk about the problems that plague VR that have nothing to do with the technology. So Peter, what about you? Updated feelings on VR?
Right. VR is kind of whatever for me. I'm more interested in AR, augmented reality. I mean, it's a fine line of difference. I feel that virtual reality, aside from the occasional really cool game, or wanting to get in the action of a movie, I think really it's better used for simulation, for training purposes. Like flight sims, that sort of thing, or for being able to go places and explore remote locations. I think for education, I think that has a greater advantage. You feeling okay there?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. I guess it is pretty late over there for you guys. Here I'm just getting into my stride, and you guys are probably getting close to bed.
I don't know. I'm good. Listen.
I saw you yawn pretty big, I think, so I was just making sure.
I'm good.
All right. So I honestly, I see virtual reality and augmented reality more as tools than actual platforms for gaming or interaction. I'm not convinced that there's any benefit or other than the shiny wow new factor for putting on a VR headset and playing a game over just sitting in front of a monitor or TV. With augmented reality, the goggles, the advantage is you can look at an engine block, and the manual for the engine block can appear on the screen and help work you through the mechanics. Whereas the VR, you have literally another reality to watch. So I'm more interested in the augmented reality side of things. I think that's where enterprise is moving towards. I think that's more interesting to me overall. But I'll wait and see.
Okay, Jonathan.
Yeah, I mean, I really, I don't, I've never been sold on virtual reality. I'm still waiting for that, like that aha moment. But I think you're right, Agassiz, in that we need more games. And I keep hearing about this. You need to experience it, and then you're going to be sold on it. And I know we'll probably get into it when we get into the news. I know one thing is like GameStop is going to start bringing it into the stores, but I don't know. I've just never really been sold onto technology. I want to wait till it gets better, like the second edition of it, or even the third edition, when they finally know what the right price point is, because they're all over the place. Like the PlayStation one's gonna be, I think, $400, and then another one's gonna be exceedingly higher than that. So I just want to see it hit the market. I want to see them have more games, and it's just amazing because it's. I feel like you have those people in the industry who really are sold on it, and then people who they're not sure. I know this person I have tons of respect for and really align a lot of my thoughts on games with is Colin Moriarty from Kind of Funny, and he's so sold on it. And I every time I hear him, I'm like, man, you sell me on everything else, and I just can't get behind this one. I don't know why. Every time I see it, I'm just like, it's not really grabbing my attention. It's not blowing me away. Why would I want to spend my time, like, I think one of them was like, you're in an office and you're just kind of toying around with like office supplies. I mean, that's cool, but do I want to spend hours and hours in that world when I could just do it with my remote in front of a TV? I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough because.
Or should I say? Yeah, I was gonna make a really stupid joke.
Well, you mentioned that Colin, is able, sold on it, and I haven't heard what Greg Miller's thoughts on it are, but at the end of the day, this is a $600 to $800 bet. and I'm not. That's at a price threshold where I'm not willing to put that down for a science experiment, in the hope that it's going to have eventual payout. There needs to be real proof of life going on with this thing, and there need to be games, and there needs to be a healthy game library for it that are going to do well. For me, even for PlayStation VR, I need to see that developers are going to support it, because and there are people who are bullish on it. There are people who feel like that's the one that has the best chance for success. But my problem is that any current developer, it's finite resources, right? I've got a development house of 50 developers just to code my core game that I code now. Now you're telling me you want me to code for VR, and is that still a $59.99 game? Because if it is, now you're telling me my revenue is going to be the same. My revenue for that game with VR is going to be the exact same as my revenue for this other game. And the question is how many units of that game are going to sell versus the VR one. And the VR one's going to have smaller uptake, right? Of the 38 or 42 million consoles that have been sold or will be sold, I'm kind of, the only people who are going to play this game are the people who have, the PlayStation VR headset, which is less than the total number of people who own a console. So, again, I think that's going to be tough, for the industry to get its head wrapped around.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem with any emerging technology, is when do you adopt? And
Right.
The obvious answer for most consumers is, well, you adopt it when there's content. But for a developer, you develop content when there's adoption. So it's kind of the funny irony of the way our market works. Is so it'll be, like I said, it'll be interesting to see what comes out on top. I mean, the PlayStation VR is what, $400, roughly.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's the least expensive of the three options.
You still have to have the PlayStation 4.
Well, right. Well, that's the thing. It's the least expensive option that still costs as much as the console that it's going to be connected to.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is a bit ridiculous.
I mean, well, unless we count Google Cardboard, I think,
Right.
which we can. I guess it's technically right.
Right.
Or Google Cardboard Plastic, if you remember that joke. But I mean, the entry. The early adoption entry level is set pretty high, because with the Oculus, that's $1,500 minimum on just the computer to run it at its basic settings. And I was listening to a podcast. They spent roughly $4 or $5 grand building out a PC to run it at close to max settings.
Right. Right.
I don't think the Vive is going to be much different from that either. I mean, it says it's a little bit lower cost of entry, but how much lower, and what are you sacrificing?
Right. So I don't have anything else on VR, Jonathan. Do you?
Yeah, I think it's just at the time is going to tell where it goes. It's gonna be interesting these next few months heading into the fall season, the holiday season, how well these things sell. E3's coming up. I mean, are they gonna maybe introduce some more games that we haven't heard of since PSX in December? My main outlet for really listening to games now has been Kind of Funny, and I'm interested. I mean, those guys have really. When you mentioned Greg Miller, he's pretty sold on it too. After a couple of months of not being so sold, but then when he got his hands on it, that's when he was like, "Wow, this is cool. I could see myself really spending time with this." And I think that's what's going to happen. I think once people get their hands on it and the word of mouth starts spreading, people start spending money on it. Developers will start. The bigger name developers will start saying, "Hey, this is something we should, maybe have a division for." The bigger ones, I don't think those. I think it's a great indie product right now. But it's gonna be interesting to see when those AAA developers jump on and say, okay, now we're bigger, so we can actually have a team play with this. And like you were saying, Code and Hello Games are working on VR for No Man's Sky. That'll be really interesting. Like that's something that's got my attention. I think stuff like that, when you have a bigger world that you can experience, I think that's when it's really gonna be cool. When it's just small stuff that they showed at like PSX, that's not gonna impress anybody, especially for what you're paying. And for the record, Colin, I love you still. I have immense respect for him, man. But man, VR just still hasn't got me. Not yet. I'm hoping soon. I'm really excited. I mean, not excited for it, but I'm looking forward to it to see where it goes.
I think Agastocles, you summed it up best on another podcast when you said something to the effect of, wake me when we get to the holodeck. It's kind of my overall feeling right now. But I'm willing to be wowed.
Yeah, same.
So to help you guys get to that point, I came across this article today which talks about Sony demoing PlayStation VR in retail in the month of June. There's not a ton of information in this article. It basically just affirms the fact that I think like 1,000 employees. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the wrong article. But they're going to have, GameStop is going to have 500,000 in-store demos across retailers for the bottom half of the year. And that's about all this article really says, because everything else would have been covered in some previous press release. So I don't know. Are you guys happy to hear about this? Did you already know? And so, GameStop running, this article being run on Destructoid doesn't really impact you guys. It does look like it comes from an advertisement. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only problem with demoing it in retail is that now I feel more than ever games are going more in the direction of the digital download, and the problem is not enough people, I think, are going to the actual store to actually have their hands on with the demo. I think the most hands-on and the most effect that those demos are going to have are on show floors like an E3, where fans go, and they toy with it there, and then they have the word of mouth from there. I don't know how much impact these stores are going to have anymore with the rise of digital downloads. The sales have been going up and up and up digitally, so yeah.
I'm going to disagree a bit.
Okay.
I think this is going to drive people to the GameStop. But I mean, here's the $20,000 question.
Yeah.
If I go and demo it and I like it, can I buy it then and there? If they don't have the product, I mean, they're going to drive people in, and there's going to be long lines of people wanting to try it, and then they're going to leave and order it on Amazon, when it comes out or is available.
Exactly.
If this is linked to them actually having product and not trickling it out like they did when the PS4 was released, then I think that that Sony and GameStop will actually have something here. But if not, I think it's a mistake to do it any other way.
Okay. So let's go head on and proceed to our next news story. So Peter, is this one from you?
Minecraft?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you want to go ahead and get started on that one?
Yeah, so everyone should probably be familiar with Minecraft by now. It's been around. you can put it on your Raspberry. You can run a Minecraft server off of a Raspberry Pi, for crying out loud. So I think we've reached maximum market saturation with Minecraft.
Yeah.
And now they're saying, hey, teachers, instead of, playing normal video games, check out Minecraft. Check out the educational edition of Minecraft. Let's see if we can bring it into your schools and use it for educational purposes. And Microsoft, to their, I've got all the respect for Microsoft's campaign to push this right now. You can write programs in I think Java or Python, depending on the version, that actually build the things for you in Minecraft. So rather than actually putting the blocks together, you can use Minecraft as a tool to teach coding. You can use it as a tool to teach how cellular networks work. Suddenly this silly little game that was written in Java is now becoming this really interesting tool that you can use for education, and I really have to hand it to Microsoft. I know they're not being 100% altruistic, and I'm fine with that, but I got to hand it to them that they're actually pushing an educational version of this video game, and it's probably going to be a little more useful than Oregon Trail or Number Munchers, like the article references, which I did play in grade school. So I just thought it was really cool,
Yeah, Minecraft is it's incredible. The creativity that you can see that people just, especially kids, the things they just build in there and recreate, it's incredible. So yeah, I think I agree. It's a great tool. It really is a great tool.
Yeah, now imagine using a programming language to build that Minecraft castle, and suddenly you can tie two things together and actually teach kids while under the guise of playing Minecraft. It's
right.
I've heard it described as the Lego of this generation.
Wow.
I think they're right. It's a sandbox. You can do just about anything.
Yeah. Right.
So, and then who dropped in the link for the new Red Dead?
That was me.
Okay.
Red Dead Redemption. One of the, I would say, arguably the PS3. Yes, PS3's probably arguably one of its top games on the system ever. People have been really wanting another one for so long. And it was a different property for Rockstar for the first time in a while. Best known for Grand Theft Auto, obviously. But then they got busy with Grand Theft Auto, I want to say 5, yes. And I think they also helped with Max Payne 3. I mean, they're going to have it. I know they're going to be at E3 this year. When I heard that, I immediately assumed Grand Theft Auto 6, which has also been rumored. But it will be interesting to see, since this has really been confirmed by a source from TechRadar, which is a good source. I would not be surprised if they reveal Red Dead Redemption 2 and like Grand Theft Auto 6, or this may just be their reveal. So it'll be interesting. Red Dead Redemption was a special game of the last generation, so to bring it into the new one, be really interesting to see how they kind of blow up the scope, really. So, yeah.
So so you have a source that tipped that Rockstar was planning on making a big announcement this E3.
Well, it's just I've been reading that kind of stuff. Like I know they're gonna be at E3. They're gonna have I think that there was a rumor or something saying that they're gonna have what do you call those things? Conference or whatever, like a
press conference. Okay.
Yeah, they're just gonna like whatever all these developers do when they go there. They have like they just show things off. They're gonna have they have a slot at E3.
That's going to be very interesting because I want to say, because Rockstar is notorious about not showing that kind of stuff before it's ready.
Yep.
I would have to believe if they do a Red Dead, that means that game's going to come out, within a month.
And with this leaking, I don't, and it may not be a Grand Theft Auto 6, even though it's about time they should. I don't think Grand Theft Auto is going to be releasing this year at all. I think it'll be another year or two, and they probably won't even announce it. Like you said, it probably may very well be Red Dead Redemption. It's been a long time since that game came out, so yeah, we'll see.
All right, very cool. So let's go ahead and wrap things up and take us out with notes and conversation on what we're playing. And I'll kick it off. For whatever reasons, I continue to play a lot of racing games. I know that the reason tonight was, I guess one thing I want to rant about was my original plan had been, that was my second plan. So originally I was going to play some Need for Speed Shift 2 Unleashed. And actually Shift 2 Unleashed doesn't even carry the Need for Speed labeling, but it is by the same studio. So my PlayStation 3 has been reborn, so to speak. So I wiped the hard drive last year and did a reinstall from the ground up, and so a lot of games that I have, I still haven't put them in that console unit yet. So a lot of them will initially go to do the install the first time, and that was what happened with Shift 2 Unleashed. I shifted over to a PC, and I had been planning on playing Need for Speed Pro Street on that PC. But what I ran into was that the game used to do activation authentication against an Origin server, and the Origin servers that were servicing Need for Speed Pro Street have already been decommissioned. So I kind of ranted at EA/Origin support earlier today, and I'm like, if you guys are gonna, I don't really understand the point in taking down the thing that authenticates somebody's purchase so that they can play a game they've paid for, without also concurrently doing something to make that activation easier for them, or removing it. So I'm like, I see you guys took down the infrastructure that we needed, but you still have the security protection in front of you being able to access the game. And I'm like, well, which is it? You took down the authentication activation server because you felt like it wasn't worth your time to keep it up, but yet you left the authentication code in the game. So that was just a little frustrating. I was playing Grid 2 on the PC last week. I then transitioned to playing some Borderlands on the PC, and then when I went to my PS3 tonight, I decided to start up a second Borderlands campaign with a different character. So I'm playing Soldier on the PC, but on Borderlands, on the PS3, I'm playing Brick, the Berserker. And then like I said, kind of last night, tonight at the last minute in a rush, I couldn't play Pro Street, so I wound up playing Grid, the first one that says on the PS3 that's actually on the PC. So, what about you guys? What have you been playing? Peter, how about you?
I've had a busy week, so I haven't been playing much of anything. But I am looking forward to logging on to Destiny tonight and seeing what their new update was all about. I've read a bit about it. I've always been a big fan of Destiny as a game. Probably like the only one by now. But I really like the game, and I had a lot of fun playing it. So I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully now that I've gotten one of my crazy things out of the way, I can enjoy some gaming and not focus so much on the running every night.
Yeah, that's something we should definitely talk about. So in the next episode, I've pitched that we talk first-person shooters for our genre. And you've been playing Destiny. You're going to be playing Destiny, or at least checking out the update. I have been playing a healthy amount of Borderlands.
Which is an awesome game.
Yeah, holds up so well. And that's one of the things I want to talk about in the first-person shooter discussion next episode is the thing that occurred to me today with Borderlands is the thing that hooks me is it's got such solid physics, which is the thing that hooks me on Destiny. It's almost like it's a very mechanical, sterile approach, but I'm not as wrapped around the axle about the story of Destiny just because it has great shooter physics, as does Borderlands. But they're definitely, entirely different games. So that might be an interesting thing to kind of bounce off of each other next episode.
Yeah. So,
Jonathan, what have you been playing, man?
Well, still going strong with the Division. Hit level 30. Finally ventured into the Dark Zone for the first time, which is basically it's multiplayer. And it continues to really be the biggest surprise for me that I'm still playing it over a month later. Put into it. I've been before, really. I was telling my brother, probably until, and this is just a prediction of mine, and I may be wrong, but until Uncharted 4, there is no other game really close to being like, this is an early front runner by a lot for my game of the year right now. It's been a surprise. It's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed my time with it, and I can't wait to see what else they do with it. They had a big update on Tuesday, just like Destiny did this past week, and I liked all of the things they added. They're really paying attention to what the community's saying. I've never been this invested in a multiplayer game before, so it's pretty. I'm just kind of going with it. And the other one, speaking of Uncharted, I started replaying the first Uncharted, Drake's Fortune, I think it is. And I'm playing that on my PS4. It's part of the collection that they remastered, brought over, whatever you want to call it, ported.
And I'm sorry. And you said you are playing that to kind of get warmed up for Uncharted 4. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I'm really Uncharted 4 is. I'm really excited for the game. Like a lot of people, I'm sure. Yeah.
So I want to touch on something that you mentioned because it seems really risky. So you're settling into the Division feeling like it's your game of the year. But in this quarter we've got Uncharted 4, Overwatch, Doom, Battleborn, Homefront, Mirror's Edge, Catalyst, and No Man's Sky all releasing. That's 8 or 9 like AAA, high-end, highly anticipated games, and those are for spring releases.
Yeah.
If that's our spring, imagine what our holiday season's going to be like.
Right.
That's just that's very bold. It's very bold leading out thinking the Division's going to be your game of the year.
And we don't even know what those fall games are just yet, which is crazy.
Right.
But this has been an amazing year for games so far, I think. But yeah, the Division so far has just done. It is bold. I agree. And I think in the end it's going to be probably Uncharted 4. But I mean, so far it's compared to, and I've played Far Cry Primal, which I really, really loved. Firewatch, which was a disappointment for me. But of the games I played this year, Division so far. But there's plenty more games to play and everything, so that could change very fast.
Okay. Anything else you want to add, Jonathan, before we get out of here for the night?
No, I'm probably gonna just those will be my 2 games for a while, and then I'll probably by next hopefully I'll have next show I'll probably hopefully be into Uncharted 2. So I'm trying to get myself down those lines.
Right. Peter, how about you? Anything final that you want to bring up before we get out of here?
No, I think I've said my piece.
All right.
Looking forward to watching a good movie, though.
Yeah.
Another good movie, I should say.
All right, everybody. So without further ado, that will be a wrap on episode number 2 of Controllers and Remotes. Join us next week. We're not sure exactly when, but sometime soon for Controllers and Remotes episode 3, where we will be going over the 1993 movie Rising Sun, as well as possibly, it's not finalized yet, first-person shooters as our main genre-oriented topic for the controller section of the next show. So if you need to find me, you can find me on Agasicles, at Agasicles Famous on Twitter. Jonathan Reyes can be found at Wordy Nerdy on Twitter. And Peter can be found. Blast it. My Twitter's not refreshed. I thought certain I was going to be able to say yours. So what's your Twitter handle, Peter?
Edrickson_Tarot.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for joining in. That is a wrap on episode number 2 of Controllers and Remotes, and we are out of here.